Hey guys, we're back and we're going to continue our exploration of understanding how to mask and create the illusion of light over a surface. We've worked on tonal bars and previously in the previous tutorial and understood what each one of these pencils can do, hardest to softest, and then we also worked with the stump. So now we're going to apply everything that we practice in the tonal bars on what's called a sphere. One of these things, okay? We're going to create the illusion of light, highlight, midtone, and shadow and casted shadows on a single sphere using these 4 pencils, okay? You can do it with 1 pencil, but you know what? We're just going to use all that we know to create a really nice looking spherical shape. Starting with a circle, okay? All starts with a circle. So the first thing that you want to do is establish your light source, okay? I'm going to say that my light is coming from over here. So my highest light on this spherical shape will be right in this area. We're going to have the highlight or the center light here. We're going to have the mid-tone here. We're going to have a terminator line there with a crest of shadow coming back here, because where the terminator line is, and I'll just kind of put my hand right here, where the terminator line is the highest point of the ball. The highest point of the ball, wherever it's poking out the most in that profile. Once you get behind the terminator line, the light starts to disappear. This light source cannot get back here, so this is going to be all dark. Then you're going to have reflected light down here, which means that this light source is bouncing off the tabletop back onto the ball and brightening it here. And then you're going to have what's called a casted shadow. So I have my circle here to begin our exploration of creating of the illusion of light over a spherical shape. So I am going to put, I like to put figure to ground. I like to create a scene. So I'm going to just put a line here, and that's going to represent my table, and this is like the wall behind it, okay? I've already created my shape for my circle and kind of like a little bit of an outline right here. I'll do a little bit more so you can see it. This is my terminator line, okay? Do not make this a hard line. This needs to blend into your work when you start the valuing, okay? So I want to use the softest pencil that I have, which will be a 4B. The softest pencil that I have, I'm going to turn it on its side, and I'll begin valuing in this area. As we did in the tonal bars, I usually start in the darker area first, and that's what I'm doing here. And I let my darker area be a batch of value or a batch of media where I can put my stump in there, and I can use some of the media into my lighter areas. This is the crest shadow. And think of the moon. Think of what that looks like when it's eclipsing, or when you see kind of like a crest up there. It's usually a curve, a slight curve. Sometimes it's straight, but most of the time, since this is spherical, it's going to wrap the terrain of the sphere. So we're wrapping here with that crest shadow. This is the crest shadow. Sometimes it's called the core shadow. So you have 2 things that this can be called. All right. So you want to get it as dark as you can without making a hard line. You do not ever want to have a straight line when you're transitional valuing. Keep massing, but never make a hard line. Now I'm going to cross over my terminator line into my mid-tone area with a softer touch, because in the mid-tone area is a bit brighter than the core shadow or crest shadow. It's a bit brighter. So I'm softening my touch. I'm softening my touch in the mid-tone area. Mid-tone, half-tone, There's a lot of different terms for everything. Every art periodical, every art teaching book, every art teacher, they use other terms, and so we have lots of terms. So now I'm softening. Like the tonal bar, you soften your touch when you get into the brighter area to keep that nice and bright. Okay? Then you can come back down here and you can hyper improve your core shadow. Make sure that you definitely apply enough of the value. If you have to go with the tripod position, be careful not to make lines in there, so you keep your movements over your surface pretty controlled, and understand your pressure so that you do not have a line that outlines anything. There's no outlines on any of the structures of this spherical form. No outlines. No outlines. This outline out here is going to disappear. So now we have center light, mid-tone, terminator line where this divides from here, front divides the back, from the front is divided from the back. Core shadow or crest shadow, same thing, crest shadow, core shadow. And then you have the core shadow still kind of dipping down a little bit more because, see, the light source is coming here and it's going across. So it can't really illuminate this side of the ball. So you're going to have a lot more core shadow kind of covering up the back side of the ball here. All right, and then as you move down here, it gets lighter again, like mid-tone. This is like mid-tone down here. And this is just a stylized sample example. When you're looking at an actual ball, this core shadow, this reflected light might not look like that. It might be up here. It might just be a circle. Or it might be way down here. It might be a circle of brightness. So you really have to evaluate, and we'll do that in our still life. When we start working with the still life, we'll start looking at the shadows and the highlight spots on everything. So we have a nice core or crest of shadow down here. Okay, you want to deepen that tone. Be careful not to break your pencils. Be careful. You only need a 1/2 inch of graphite out of your pencils so that you don't put them at risk. Okay. Okay, now that's looking pretty good. So we have our center light, mid-tone, core or crest, reflected light. We're just setting it up right now. We're setting it up right now. We'll get in there and we'll use the stump and clean it up and make it look really nice. Now, as far as the light source goes, up here, way up here, there's a mechanics to it. If you take a straight line from the from the center part of your light source, I'm going to use my ruler just so you guys can see before I even put a line on here. If you take a straight line and you go all the way down from the center of your light to the edge of your ball, just take a little light line right there. At this point right here on the table, that's going to be where part of your shadow lies. And then you take a straight line from over here to the bottom of your ball. And that's going to be where the front end of your shadow is. So we have a shadow that looks a little like this. It's very long. So at this point is where the light source is coming down from the top of the ball, and this is where the end of your shadow should be. And this is where the beginning of your shadow should be, actually. It should be more like this. I gave it a little bit too much. Okay, so that is how you get the shadows in mechanically. All right, so we have our nice shadow. Now the next thing that we want to do, we have another region of shadow basics or light logic that we need to know. This is the center light, this is the mid-tone, this is the crest or core, this is the reflected, and then you have a casted shadow. The casted shadow includes what's called the occlusion shadow, and it's right down below, and it's the hottest or the darkest. Now this is where you have to be careful with pressing too hard on your graphite, since we have shaved them so much. You don't want to push too hard to break it, but right below the ball where it sits on the table is where you're going to have no light. No light can get under there. So it's called the occlusion shadow, and it's very, very dark. Now, as I'm moving out right here, I'm lightening up my tone because now the light can kind of see the shadow. All right. Now, at this point, you can put your pencil on the side. I just wanted to identify the occlusion first. You don't have to do the occlusion first. You can do the entire this process first, and then you can go back and put your occlusion in place at the end to give it a little bit more drama. Within your casted shadow, there's two other regions. One is called penumbra, and the other one is called umbra. Penumbra is the darkest part. Umbra is the lightest part. So now we have a little bit more technique we have to put in here. Take your time, no rushing. You want a nice job. And again, this is all rough right now. We can get back in here with the stump and clean it up. We can also get back in here with other pencils and reduce some of the white stipply marks in here as well. All right, so now we have a nice shadow in here. A lot of times on the edges, the shadows don't have to be a clean line. They can be a little blurred. And you can do that with your stump as well. And it also just depends on how close your light source is to your objects. If your light source is really, really close, then you're going to have very, very strong edges, very highly detailed edges, a real strong outline on your edge. If your light source is further back, there's a lot of diffusion that's happening with the light source as it crosses over the surface and hits the table, and then you're going to have a little bit of blur on your edges of your shadows. So it just depends on how far and how close it is. So I feel like my shadow could be really strong in its edge over here. Not too dark. You don't want it to be as dark as the occlusion shadow, but we can have a strong edge, and as it moves over here, it can diffuse out. And actually, this part right here can get even lighter as it goes out away from the shape, because the light is able to touch the paper or the surroundings of the room and diffuse out this edge down here. This doesn't have to be so dark down here, and this can actually be a little bit darker here. Ebony pencils are great. I do not have an ebony pencil, but an ebony pencil will give you nice darks when you're working with shadows and drama in your work. So you just keep on massing, keep on layering with whatever pencils you have. The H pencils will not do this. You need to have a B family in order to get nice shading like this. Okay, so now we have the ball all set up. We have all the areas. So what I'm going to do is take my stump, and of course I'm going to just go ahead and use the dirty stump that I already have, see? And I'm going to go into here because this is darker. I need it darker actually, but it's pretty dark, and this is pretty dark. That might help darken it. Circular movement, gently. See, I'm not even pressing. I have my hand pushed back, and I'm doing gentle circles. Don't push. Gentle circles, don't push. All right. Now guess what? I need to go with the cleaner side now because I want to come up here in the brightest area of my ball. And I'm doing circles. Stay in the bright. and then gently pull in some value from the mid-tone. Then you move into the mid-tone. Move into the mid-tone. We're just cleaning it up. And then I'm moving into my my core. I'm gonna move back over here. And then my reflected light at the bottom. Now what I need to do is improve the value quality here. I have my 4H. I'm gonna get back in here and darken a little bit. And I'm just gonna go with the tripod position of my hand to give myself a little bit more leverage on my shape because I need it darker. So guess what? I am going to grab my HB now because I need more tone. Turn it on the side. Turn it on the side. I need more tone here. It's too light. It's almost like a muddy, not a real contrast. Turn it on the side and give it a nice punch with some values. So switch up your pencils when you need to. You want dramatic light and dark effects on these sorts of drawings. Look at that. It's way better. Now, when you have the little stipplies in here, you see all the little darks, the bright spots, you can use your HB. You can use your HB, or you can use your 2H. Well, I have a mechanical 2H. And you can get in here and just kind of go in there gently to push around the soft media and to get rid of the white spots that are left behind. Sometimes the stump can do it, sometimes not. You have to work with all the materials that you have. You definitely don't want to push hard with this. Do not push hard. This is only to help move around and detail and define your surface. And as we work, you see that outline over here is going away. The outline down here went away. This one's going away. So you want to make sure you're working it where your outlines are going away. Outlines flatten things. We're trying to create an illusion of a spherical thing, a ball, one of these, okay? We're trying to create that. So we do not want to keep any outlines. So of course, you see I have all these pencils in my hand. I'm using all of these pencils. Where I need some more dark, I'm using the HB. I'm sorry, not the HB, the 8B. The H8B, number 8B. And of course, this is a shadow. It's behind the ball, and we do need it to be pretty dark, pretty well defined. And back and forth layers over everything is the best method. You keep on working it. Keep on defining all of the special light and dark tones that you can get. Use your highest numbers of B's to get the darker tones in here. In order to get rid of this line here, guess what I have to do? I have to put in a background. So this is figure to ground. We have the ground down here, up here and down there. So we're gonna go over here on this side, and I'm gonna use my 9B just to do some kind of atmospheric background. Really not atmospheric, it could be like a textural background. It's the wall. Use safety paper all the time when you're drawing over anything. You don't want your hand to touch it. So I'm gently kind of going around where that outline is just to get started with obliterating the outline. I don't want the outline around my ball. And I'm just doing some kind of random texture back here. It could be crosshatch, it could be a blend. I can go back in here with my stump afterwards and smooth it out a little bit, but I need to put some medium in here first, and then I'll do something with the stump, or I could just leave it random. And this is just for us to understand how to build it, build the sphere, utilize all of the regions of light of value over a spherical shape like this, and use all the pencils that we have that we need to create our illusionistic drawing. And this is just an example. Put your pencil on the side, and then over here on the other side where it's darker, you can go with a lighter touch over here. Or, yeah, just go with a lighter touch. Keep it clean though. Anytime you have scraps on your paper and you go over it with a pencil, you're gonna see ugly marks. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure you keep your surface nice and clean. So I'm just lightening up my touch over here on this other side to represent my wall. It's like maybe I have a spotlight. I do have a spotlight right here that is kind of shining on the ball, but kind of illuminating back here as well. So you have to be logical with this too. You have to be thinking about what's happening when you see that light go over an object. Okay, and so now my floor, I don't have to really do anything with my surface. I can just consider it to be like white paper or something like that. You don't want to have any lines showing up on anything. So, how about that? Did I accomplish it? Did I? I think so. So this is us with a little bit of all of our pencils, a little bit of your stump. You can do something with your background if you like. A little bit of using this, and a little bit of using this, our safety paper. So hopefully you guys will work on this idea and create this very beautiful spherical form using your graphite tools. And I'll see you in the next set.